What if Tank Davis, who can punch, who is a hell of a fighter, who is a top 10 pound-for-pound fighter, what if he lands a punch on this bigger guy's chin, right, who's not a professional fighter? What happens?
They do it for real. Tank is highly capable of taking Jake Paul out. So the exhibitions that I like to see are ones that either I can mythically look at and say, wow, well, if he would have did that back when he was 10 years younger or 8 years or 12 years ago, he would have beat him. You understand me? Because we know boxing.
Which if he hits you because he's so accurate, he's gonna drop you or could put you to sleep. But like not necessarily power punch. Like Edwin De Los Santos is a hard hitter. He would even have a hard time with rollies. I'm not.
Boxing legends dive into why Gervonta Davis takes Jake Paul apart in just 3 rounds. Gareth A. Davis points out how Gervonta stayed calm at the press conference and during the face-off, barely flinching at Jake's jabs about his height. He says Tank looked a little unsure, almost like he'd been cornered into this fight. But once that bell rings, all that quiet turns dangerous. Davis believes Tank will unleash a storm of punches, the kind that don't just end a fight, but silence a man who talks too much.
Went about the presser.
He reminded me of a northern football fan being dragged to a shopping centre on a Saturday afternoon rather than being allowed to go to his favourite Liverpool seat. You'll relate to that, won't you? It was almost like he'd been shackled and dragged there against his will. Even when they faced off, it was as if Jake Paul had a bad smell about him or something. He didn't want to get near Jake Paul. He didn't want to. I'm just going to plug this in as well. I just realised it's not plugged in. It was almost as if he didn't want to indulge anyone at all. Like he'd signed up against his will, and then like he'd been signed up against his will. The agents and his manager and his handler had dragged him there without briefing him on what was going on and where it would be and what time it would take place. And there was this oaf in his mind standing there in front of him, this big oaf who kept posturing, and it just didn't do anything to him. I wondered at one point whether he was going to burst out with a combination of punches or something and just drop Jake Paul, who was being, measuring him up and going down to his height, and it was all very peculiar in my view. Like he really wasn't taking it seriously.
Ryan Garcia doesn't hide his frustration over the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight. To him, it's a slap in the face to boxing itself, an uneven matchup built more for clicks than credibility. He calls out the obvious size and weight gap, saying this isn't a real contest. It's a show dressed up as competition. Ryan insists boxing should stand for skill, legacy, and respect, not viral moments or easy paydays. Watching a smaller fighter like Gervonta face someone naturally bigger like Jake feels wrong to him. It's not just mismatched, it's misleading. He worries it tells young fighters the wrong lesson, that hype and money matter more than discipline and honor. For Ryan, this goes beyond entertainment. It's about protecting the soul of boxing, and to him, this fight mocks everything he's fought to represent.
Mainly Jake's, and we're not falling for the Disney Channel bit no more. We're not falling for you're not a fighter no more. We're not falling for that. You're ranked as a cruiserweight, and you're out here trying to fight a lightweight. And then on top of it, you were just talking about fighting Anthony Joshua. That doesn't make no sense. And, I just felt like it was a disgrace to boxing, and kind of it was not a good move by Jake Paul. I understand people saying, Gervonta got to go get his money, blah, blah, blah. But, we're not talking about that shit. We're talking about the sport, bro. We're not talking about, he got to get that money, bro. Yeah, but everybody's open to criticism. That's the whole point of this media shit. That's why they talk about basketball players. They don't talk about, LeBron's making too much. Nobody cares, bro. If LeBron's missing the shot, he's missing the fucking shot. So at the end of the day, bro, I just thought it was a disgrace to the sport. Because on one end, you got the casuals, right? The casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Yeah. And if Gervonta Davis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're going to think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter. Yeah. And to me, that's just it's tricking the public, and it's kind of bullshit, bro, at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, if Gervonta was Jake Paul's size, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. There probably wouldn't even be a fight.
Yeah,
you know
for
what I
sure.
mean? So I just think that it's a disgrace to boxing.
Well, we got to play devil's advocate because people were saying, well, Ryan, you called out Jake Paul before too, so how would you say that? What do you have to say to the people that were saying that to you?
Well, I'm way bigger than Gervonta Davis. Gervonta Davis is 5'4", and his last fight was at 133. My last fight was 147, and I walk around 170. So, I mean, 170 to 190, whatever, however big is not too much difference. But you got Gervonta Davis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, like, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight. Nobody was complaining when Jake Paul was fighting Julio Cesar Chavez.
Right.
Nobody was complaining when he was fighting Anthony Joshua. And I still think Jake Paul's a cool dude. But shit, he's called me out on my shit. I'm gonna call him out on his shit, bro. That's a fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like the Mike Tyson, low key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But
Yeah.
he was 60 years old. I mean,
Right.
what the f are we talking
he's
about
60.
here?
That's crazy.
Sean Porter sees this matchup through the eyes of a man who's lived it all, a veteran who knows what the sport used to stand for. To him, it's a mirror showing where boxing is headed. He says this new generation seems obsessed with quick paychecks instead of lasting greatness. In Porter's eyes, Gervonta Davis has joined a growing list of fighters chasing money over meaning. He remembers when legends risked everything for glory, stepping into the ring with the best just to carve their names into history. Now he believes it's all about brand deals, viral fame, and fast cash. Tank's choice to fight Jake Paul, he says, reveals just how much the sport's priorities have shifted. Porter still calls Tank one of the most gifted fighters alive, but laments that his brilliance is being wasted on spectacle instead of legacy-defining wars. His frustration runs deeper than one man. It's with the whole culture of money-driven matchups that, in his eyes, are quietly stripping boxing of its soul.
Why are you doing that? How do you sort of see this scenario now for him?
Yeah, I don't really know how to feel about it, what to really say about it. I've only been asked this when it's been presented to me. That's when I think about it, and I can't really come up with a good answer for it. In a lot of ways, it doesn't make sense to me. Of course, we know the size differential, and the list goes on from there. I don't know, man. I think we're entering a generation now, or a phase now where fighters, I don't know if it's fighters, I don't know if he doesn't care about the legacy, or if he feels like this fight doesn't matter, I'll get back to the legacy. I just don't know. This is truly not, it's not a legacy fight, but of course it is a generational money fight, so.
Many analysts say the issue doesn't lie solely with the fighters. It's also with the crowd watching them. They believe today's audience fuels the circus. The art of pure, technical boxing between true elites often fades into the background, while exhibitions and influencer matchups steal every headline. They point to social media's short attention span as the reason the sport has drifted from substance to spectacle. The analysts insist the Jake Paul wave isn't just his doing. It's the audience cheering for chaos instead of craft. When fans tune in only for trash talk and viral clips, real fighters lose their reason to chase legacy over likes. They warn that this fan-driven culture has blurred the line between sport and show. True champions fight for belts, influencers fight for clicks. And as long as the crowd keeps paying to see the circus, the spotlight will stay fixed on spectacle, not the sport itself.
Boxing has evolved to where it's at. I'll expand on that. For one, you have good fights where I'm not talking about these type of fights, crossover type of fight, former Disney guy, influencer stuff. Not. And Jake Paul has really promoted himself and acquitted himself to the point where he's kind of a boxer. Now, he hasn't fought the top names. I get it, blah, blah, blah. But he's doing his thing. He's training like a boxer. He's not like taking it lightly, like streaming and then working on his YouTube more than he's working on his boxing. It is what it is, right? But beyond that, let's keep it going. I told you I'm about to really get unpacked. Subscribe to the channel. The reality is, the reason why I'm saying I blame you, the fans, is because we've had some very good fights, like David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, whatever. I'm talking in the last 5-10 years, right? Very good fights, all boxing. So not talking influencer or any type of crossover fight, right? Good fights. And then you got boxing fans in a niche sport who didn't further the exposure by advertising or buying the fight, mostly buying the fight with piracy and whatnot. So now we're at a point in this society where these companies, they're like, all right, they see the piracy is a problem. Now they're looking for sure shot, must win type of scenarios. That's why we're getting these fights that some people, purists and diehards, are calling wonky fights. You know what I mean? It is your fault.
One major concern shared by professionals is the massive size gap between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis. Jake naturally walks around as a cruiserweight, while Tank belongs to the lightweight class. Analysts point out that no matter how skilled Davis is, the laws of boxing physics don't bend. Reach, weight, and power still decide so much. They caution that matching Tank against Jake in an official bout could be both unfair and dangerous. Jake can take hits from bigger men and keep pressing forward, while Tank, known for his knockout power, would need to fight uphill, closing distance against someone taller, heavier, and stronger. Critics argue that mismatches like this shouldn't even get sanctioned under proper boxing standards. On paper, Jake has the edge in size, Tank in speed and skill. Yet that uneven balance is exactly what makes it so controversial. For boxing traditionalists, it's one more sign that the sport's rules are starting to bend beneath the weight of entertainment.
How do I even start to break down a Tank Davis versus Jake Paul fight? Tank, a massively powerful fighter at 135 pounds, but his punch output is among the lowest in the sport. Jake has a pretty decent punch output for a guy that's 200 pounds. He hits hard in his own right, but doesn't have the skill and capabilities anywhere close, or the feet, or the hand speed, or the eyes anywhere close to Tank Davis, but has a power that Tank Davis has probably never felt, but just because Jake is naturally 70 pounds bigger than him, right? So 10 rounds, 3 minutes, who starts to show the wear and tear first? I know if Tank touches him on the jaw, it's probably not going to feel like roses, regardless if he's 135 or 150 or whatever he steps in that night. He's still a Tank and has still put guys down as he's gone up in weight, but Jake is just so much bigger. How much will the power that Tank has at the lower weight classes affect?
Showbiz the Adult takes a closer look at Tank's legacy and how fragile it's starting to feel. He points out that Tank's career has long faced criticism for avoiding the most dangerous fights. Now, with the Jake Paul matchup, his credibility could take yet another hit. Showbiz argues that Lamont Roach's performance against Pitbull Cruz, Tank's most recognized opponent, exposes just how competitive the division truly is. If Roach manages to outshine Pitbull, it casts a shadow over Tank's supposed dominance. To Showbiz, boxing runs on perception. If someone beats your best when more convincingly than you did, fans start questioning your greatness. That's why he warns Tank to move carefully when shaping his legacy. A fight with Jake Paul might fatten the paycheck, but it won't build his resume. In fact, it risks fueling the narrative that Tank's chasing fame over forever, that the hunger for true legacy may be slipping away.
He's better than Tank. I don't even know how you cannot have him better than Tank. People question Tank's resume anyway. But if you make Tank take a knee and they don't call it a knockdown and you still get the draw, you beat him. You beat Tank. And then you dominate Pitbull, one of Tank's best wins. Bro, you better than him. The resume, listen, bro. I didn't say greater. I said better. The resume means politics. Ryan was just saying it. Lamont Roach could have been on a back burner and they were holding him back, so he had to go down to 130. Doing the grunt work like Marvelous Marvin Hagler, waiting for his time to shine. Resume, if the business chooses you, they can move you along right. He actually get cherry picked and he best Tank, and then he stops Pitbull. He's better. Y'all know how the business of boxing works. You just saw Terrence Crawford actually be the best fighter we've seen in decades. The man, Terrence Crawford, can arguably be better than Floyd Mayweather. Y'all saw the business shit him for all of his career, practically all of his career. And you see that he's better than Nello? What a surprise. We've been sitting, a guy coming from lightweight can beat Nello at super middleweight?
Lamont Roach adds a new twist to the controversy, pulling back the curtain on the business drama behind the scenes. He claims Tank was contractually set for a rematch, likely against a top contender, but instead chose Jake Paul for the bigger payday. To Roach, that decision says everything about where Tank's priorities have shifted. It's no longer about proving greatness. It's about chasing the quick money. He stresses that true fighters honor their contracts and their word because the soul of boxing depends on that integrity. Roach admits Tank's talent is elite and his killer instinct undeniable, but this choice raises doubts about his discipline. Many fans feel disappointed, even betrayed, knowing the rematch could have been Tank's chance to silence every critic who still questions his dominance.
Because if he did, even if this whole Jake situation was in the way, holler at me. Tell me you want to fight Jake. Tell me you got a bag coming up. All right, boom. Like,
go do
it's a way to handle that. We have a contract. You cannot breach a contract and think shit just gonna be sweet. You can't. You can't do that. Right. We have a contract. So it's not like this wasn't supposed to happen or whatever the case may be. And he just went and took the Jake route. We had a signed contract to fight. So him breaching the contract is, if y'all put yourself in my shoes, you got to think, I'm looking forward to fighting and getting paid. I'm looking forward to fighting and winning so I could be two-time world champ. Me. I'm in training for a fight to be a champion in another weight class and for me to be crowned champion twice in my career. And this just go and then end up announcing another fight. Put yourself in my shoes.
Did you find out just like the rest of us did?
Kinda. So I was on the fence because they didn't announce. They was like, all right, we're going to announce. All right, we're going to announce. All right, they're going to announce. Every week. All right, we're going to announce the fight. We're going to announce the fight. I'm like, all right, they on the bullshit.
Max Kellerman adds some balance to the debate, acknowledging Jake Paul's undeniable impact on boxing's business side. He points out that no modern fighter sells tickets or sparks conversation quite like Jake does. That's why pros keep saying yes to his offers, not out of respect for his skill, but because no one can match his reach. Jake has become the sport's biggest marketing engine, and even world champions want a share of that spotlight. Kellerman and Paulie Malignaggi go back and forth on whether Tank's knockout power can carry over against a much bigger man. They both agree Tank's explosiveness is world-class, but wonder if sheer power can bridge the gap when the size difference becomes impossible to ignore.
Legitimately cannot get knockouts. I agree. He can punch, but there's a lot of limited knockout artists still, man.
He's one of the least active punchers in the game with the highest knockout percentage of current heavyweight.
But if he was a real knockout artist, if he was a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best of the best. Felix Trinidad was a knockout artist. He was knocking out the best of the best. If you're a real knockout artist, prop him up against the best and show us how he smokes them. But the way
Paulie,
we did when Felix Trinidad was doing it. You know? The way they did it when Mike Tyson was doing it in his prime. Say what you want about the Mike Tyson era. He knocked out everyone from 1986 to 1989. Everyone got knocked out. Everyone.
Well, by your standard, you could say that Tyson was, to a degree, manufactured.
No, because he fought everyone that was there. Everyone that was there at that time fought.
Teddy Ellis will 100% agree with this.
With the expense of
Witherspoon. That were afraid of him.
With the exception of Witherspoon. No, but they all, doesn't matter. He knocked them all out. There was nobody you could say in that era except maybe Witherspoon, who had contract issues with King at the time. Except for Witherspoon, there is nobody Tyson didn't fight in that era. He knocked them all.
Eddie Griffin closes the conversation with a sharp cynical take that Jake Paul's fights aren't real contests, but carefully crafted entertainment. He calls them Hollywood fights, where outcomes seem guided more by profit than pure competition. Griffin points to the Mike Tyson exhibition as proof, saying Tyson could have ended that bout whenever he wanted, but didn't, because that wasn't part of the plan. In his eyes, the same thing could happen in the Tank fight, a spectacle scripted for excitement, not truth. If Jake gets knocked out too early, the hype dies. If he survives, the money multiplies. Griffin believes everyone involved understands the financial stakes, which is why the whole event feels more like a performance than a rivalry. And yet, he admits, fans will still show up, because in today's boxing world, controversy doesn't just sell better than authenticity. It is the product.
I ain't even gonna call it a fight, because it ain't. If Jake Paul's involved in it, it's a great acting job. You know Mike Tyson could have just knocked Jake Paul's face into the canvas, but he got paid to pull punches, otherwise he wouldn't have got paid. I'm pretty sure the same is going for Gervonta Davis. It's a quick money grab. Man, most of y'all gonna be suckers who tune in. It's just a quick money grab. That's all I'm saying. Ain't gonna be no fight. I don't give a fuck how big Jake Paul is. He can't take one of them little mother tank punches. Yeah, tank move furniture. Move furniture. Catch that motherfucking move furniture. And Jake don't like his furniture move, so he gonna pay him not to hit him again. If you really want to show out Gervonta, sign a contract that you ain't gonna hit him, because if you hit him, you lose all the money. And then whoop that motherfucker's ass, put him to sleep, and get him out the boxing game once and for all. Let's go up again.
That's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned, because the next one might just shake things up even more. Until next time.